October 14, 1943, marked a day of stark terror and profound loss. High above the German landscape, at an altitude of 25,000 feet, Staff Sergeant Michael Romano, a man whose physical stature belied his immense courage, was hunched within the constricted tail section of his B-17 flying fortress. His hands, calloused and strong, gripped the twin 50 caliber machine guns, formidable weapons that individually outweighed him. Through the small, curved plexiglass window, a menacing Focke-Wulf FW-190 was observed meticulously positioning itself for an imminent assault. The German fighter was approaching from the 6 o'clock low position, precisely the most perilous and exposed angle for the lumbering bomber. Romano strained his eyes, peering through his rudimentary ring and bead sight. This primitive aiming mechanism, consisting of little more than 2 metal posts that required manual alignment with the target, offered absolutely no assistance for compensating for the incredible speeds involved, nor any calculation for deflection. It was a stark absence of aid as both aircraft hurtled through the frigid sky at combined closing speeds that dramatically surpassed 500 miles per hour. He discharged his weapons, the staccato burst of fire echoing in the confined space. Tracers, like fiery arrows, arced harmlessly through the air, trailing behind the rapidly diving enemy fighter. In a terrifying instant, the FW-190's cannons erupted in flashes of orange light, and 20mm shells, with devastating force, ripped through the bomber's aluminum skin as if it were mere tissue paper. This harrowing scenario was not an isolated incident. It was replicated an astonishing 291 times on that fateful day, during what became known as the Second Schweinfurt Raid. The 8th Air Force had dispatched a formidable fleet of 291 B-17 flying fortresses deep into the heart of Germany, critically without any accompanying fighter escort. By the arrival of nightfall, the grim tally revealed that 60 of these magnificent bombers, representing more than 20% of the entire attacking force, had been shot down from the sky. An additional 138 aircraft returned to base so extensively damaged that they were deemed beyond repair, never to fly again. The human cost was equally devastating, with 600 American airmen tragically losing their lives. The statistical reality was brutal and utterly unsustainable. At this catastrophic rate of attrition, it was mathematically certain that no bomber crew could statistically expect to survive their required 25 missions. A thorough post-mission analysis laid bare the grim and undeniable truth. Tail gunners, who were theoretically the bomber's final line of defense against the Germans' preferred attack angle, were achieving abysmal hit rates, falling below a mere 8%. German fighter pilots, therefore, needed only to execute attacks from the rear, endure a few fleeting seconds of largely inaccurate return fire, and then methodically proceed to dismantle America's multi-billion-dollar strategic bombing campaign, one fortress at a time. Senior commanders convened urgently at 8th Air Force Headquarters in High Wycombe, England, their faces etched with concern. The defensive armament, which was intended to transform the B-17 into an impregnable flying fortress, had failed, with catastrophic consequences. Without an immediate and effective solution, the entire strategic doctrine of daylight precision bombing faced the very real threat of outright cancellation. What these high-ranking commanders were completely unaware of was that at that precise moment on a cold, windswept hardstand at Bassingbourn Airfield, a young 22-year-old tail gunner possessing barely a high school education was meticulously sketching a revolutionary design in his logbook. This design, audacious in its simplicity and ingenuity, flagrantly violated multiple Army Air Force's regulations. It was a design that would subsequently be dismissed by seasoned weapons engineers as mechanically impossible. Yet it was a design destined to triple tail gun accuracy and, in doing so, save countless thousands of American lives. This is the compelling narrative of an innovation they attempted to prohibit and the indomitable gunner who steadfastly refused to relent. Stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. What do you think about the video topic? Where are you from? To truly grasp the profound revolutionary impact of Romano's innovation, one must first comprehend the seemingly insurmountable problem that tail gunners confronted in 1943. The B-17 Flying Fortress, a marvel of aviation engineering, entered combat operation with a defensive philosophy that had been, somewhat incongruously, borrowed directly from naval warfare. Bristling with an impressive array of machine guns, strategically positioned to create overlapping fields of fire, the bombers were theoretically intended to protect themselves through the sheer volume of lead they could unleash. Army Air Force's promotional materials, eager to promote the aircraft's formidable image, proudly touted it as a flying battleship. However, the harsh crucible of combat would soon expose a brutally different reality. Staff Sergeant Michael Romano, a former factory worker hailing from Pittsburgh, reported to Bassingbourn Airfield, England, in August 1943. He arrived as a replacement tail gunner for the distinguished 91st Bomb Group. He possessed no college degree, no formal engineering background, and was barely 19 years old when he first enlisted. The Army provided him with a mere 6 weeks of training, instructing him on how to clear weapon jams, estimate target range, and, perhaps most importantly, to fervently pray that his shots would connect. His assigned position, the tail gunner station, was an incredibly cramped space, scarcely larger than a coffin. He was compelled to kneel on a bicycle-like seat, his feet braced against the aircraft's internal structure, his hands wrestling with the formidable 84-pound Browning M2 machine guns through a severely restricted field of fire. The guns themselves pivoted on a simple yoke mount. His aiming system was a rudimentary ring and bead sight, essentially a metal circle with a post at the front, uncannily similar to the sights found on a frontier rifle. To successfully hit a rapidly diving enemy fighter, Romano was burdened with an extraordinary array of complex tasks. He had to accurately estimate the target's speed relative to his own aircraft, meticulously calculate the deflection angle, determining precisely where to aim ahead of the moving target, and simultaneously compensate for the ballistic drop of the bullets over distance. All of these intricate calculations had to be executed while wearing bulky, cumbersome gloves in temperatures that plummeted to a brutal 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And all this had to be accomplished under the immense pressure of firing before the German pilot's cannons, which boasted 4 times the range, could unleash their deadly payload, transforming his confined position into a maelstrom of shrapnel. Even expert gunners from peacetime aerial gunnery schools, attempting the same shots under carefully controlled conditions, found their hit rates barely exceeding 12%. In the chaos of actual combat, stressed, oxygen-deprived, and under intense enemy fire, actual hit rates plummeted to a dismal 6% and 8%. The Luftwaffe, with their keen tactical acumen, immediately recognized this glaring vulnerability. German fighter tactics evolved significantly throughout 1943. Their preferred strategy involved attacking from the 6 o'clock level, or low, accepting a brief 15 to 20-second period of largely inaccurate tail gun fire, closing to within 200 yards, and then unleashing devastating 20mm cannon strikes. Luftwaffe after-action reports candidly described B-17 tail positions as marginally dangerous, with accuracy insufficient to deter attacks. The consequences of this tactical disparity were stark and immediate. August 17, 1943, witnessed the first Schweinfurt raid, resulting in the loss of 60 bombers. On October 8, 1943, the Bremen raid claimed another 30 bombers. Just 2 days later, October 10, 1943, the Münster raid added another 30 bombers to the tragic tally. The 8th Air Force was hemorrhaging bombers at an alarming rate, faster than American factories could produce and replace them. General Henry Hap Arnold, the commanding general of the Army Air Forces, receiving these grim casualty reports in Washington, began to seriously question whether daylight bombing remained a viable strategic option. Engineers proposed various solutions, increasing the number of guns, utilizing larger caliber weapons, or installing powered turrets. Boeing's Cheyenne Modification Center initiated the design of an improved tail turret, but the projected development timelines stretched far into 1944. While powered turret prototypes did exist, their installation necessitated the removal of the entire tail section of the aircraft, a months-long factory modification that was utterly impossible to implement on bombers already deployed in England. In the interim, precious lives were being lost daily. Michael Romano embarked on his inaugural combat mission on August 19, 1943, targeting Gilsey Ryan Airfield in the Netherlands. During the engagement, he fired 480 rounds at 3 attacking FW-190s. He genuinely believed he had scored hits. However, gun camera footage reviewed later revealed a disheartening truth. Every single tracer round had passed harmlessly behind the targets. The enemy fighters, undeterred, went on to destroy 2 bombers within his formation. Following his third mission, Romano remained on the hard stand after landing, his gaze fixed intently upon his guns. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the sheer physical exhaustion of manhandling the cumbersome 84-pound weapons through sustained fire while kneeling at high altitude. That very night, he meticulously sketched his initial design concept. The fundamental problem, he realized, was not the gun itself. It was not even the mount. The core issue was that tail gunners were effectively firing blind, fruitlessly chasing targets they could not properly track, aiming at points in space they could not accurately predict. What Romano desperately needed was a capability that the Army Air Forces had not provided, a reliable method to visualize precisely where his bullets would impact before he even pulled the trigger. He needed a reflector sight. However, the tail position's severely cramped quarters rendered a standard reflector sight installation utterly impossible unless someone was willing to disregard established regulations. Staff Sergeant Michael Romano possessed absolutely no formal qualifications in weapons engineering. Born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in 1924, Romano had left high school at the tender age of 16 to work in the steel mills during his father's illness. He operated blast furnaces, repaired heavy machinery, and acquired practical metallurgy knowledge through hands-on trial and error, rather than from textbooks. When America entered the war, he enlisted in the Army Air Forces, hoping to escape the arduous factory work. The military assigned him to aerial gunnery school, not due to any demonstrated aptitude, but simply because his compact size made him suitable for fitting into the confined tail position. At 5 feet 7 inches tall and weighing 145 pounds, Romano could squeeze into spaces that larger recruits could not. He completed his basic gunnery training at Harlingen, Texas, achieving only an average score on range qualifications. His instructors noted adequate trigger discipline and satisfactory weapons maintenance. Nobody identified him as exceptional. He received his silver gunner's wings and an assignment to a B-17 crew, essentially an interchangeable part in the vast machinery of the 8th Air Force. Yet, Romano possessed one crucial trait that his training record failed to capture: an inherent inability to accept systems that simply did not function effectively. After his 5th combat mission, on October 4, 1943, over Frankfurt, Romano's frustration reached a critical boiling point. His bomber returned with a staggering 78 flak holes and significant damage from 2 relentless fighter attacks. Romano had fired 620 rounds, yet he had hit absolutely nothing. His closest friend, the tail gunner on a neighboring B-17, had tragically died when a Bf-109 attacked from directly astern, and Romano's desperate counterfire had failed to deter it. That night, Romano walked purposefully to the aircraft revetment, carrying a maintenance flashlight and his indispensable logbook. He climbed back into the tail section, which still reeked of cordite and hydraulic fluid, and stared intently at the ring and bead sight. The moment of profound insight arrived, not as a dramatic, sudden revelation, but as a simple yet profound observation. Romano noticed his own reflection in the curved plexiglass window. In that distorted mirror, he could perceive angles behind his aircraft's tail, angles that the limited field of view of the ring and bead sight could never encompass. He began to sketch rapidly, his pencil flying across the pages of his logbook. What if, he mused, he mounted small mirrors at strategic angles, thereby providing him with peripheral vision extending beyond the gun sight's inherently limited field of view? What if he angled these mirrors to specifically display the tracer paths from his own guns, effectively allowing him to walk his fire onto targets by observing the reflection, rather than straining to squint through inadequate iron sights? Then came the crucial transformative leap. What if he combined these mirrors with a simple reflector sight, a piece of glass etched with an aiming reticle, positioned to allow him to track targets, while simultaneously watching his tracer patterns in the peripheral mirrors? It was not a true computing gun sight, like the sophisticated gyroscopic systems found in fighter aircraft. It was a jury-rigged combination of reflective surfaces and improvised aiming references, but he thought it just might work. Romano dedicated 3 intense hours that evening to meticulously crafting designs, precisely measuring various angles and calculating essential sight lines with a carpenter's protractor, a valuable tool he had ingeniously salvaged from the base machine shop. By the break of dawn, he possessed incredibly detailed drawings for a novel, mirror-assisted reflector sight system. This innovative system was remarkable for its simplicity, requiring no powered components, no intricate installation procedures, and absolutely no factory modifications to existing equipment. However, despite his brilliant invention, he immediately recognized a significant hurdle. His meticulously developed design directly contravened Army Air Force's Technical Order A-1-220-EG-2, a strict regulation that expressly forbade any unauthorized modifications to defensive armament. proceeding with installation without official approval could inevitably lead to a severe court-martial, a grave military tribunal. Yet, with a resolute conviction, Romano decided that such a consequence was negligible compared to the potential benefits of his creation. Romano soon discovered an unexpected collaborator in a rather unconventional location, the base sheet metal shop. There he encountered Technical Sergeant Frank Kellerman, a seasoned 38-year-old aircraft mechanic originally hailing from Detroit. Kellerman had previously gained invaluable experience serving in the Civilian Conservation Corps during the Great Depression, where he honed his skills by constructing bridges and repairing diverse equipment using whatever scavenged materials he could find. When Romano approached him on October 7th, presenting his detailed sketches and requesting some discreet, off-the-books fabrication work, Kellerman meticulously scrutinized the drawings for a mere 5 minutes, his expression unreadable. "This endeavor is entirely illicit," Kellerman declared with a stark, unwavering tone. Romano simply nodded, acknowledging the truth in the sergeant's blunt assessment. "Indeed, Sergeant, it is. You are effectively soliciting me to clandestinely modify defensive armament without the requisite engineering approval, an action that unequivocally violates approximately half a dozen distinct technical orders," Kellerman elaborated, his voice betraying a hint of professional exasperation. "Yes, Sergeant, that is precisely my request," Romano affirmed, maintaining his composure. Kellerman then lifted his gaze from the intricate drawings, his eyes meeting Romano's. "When is your next flight scheduled?" "Tomorrow to Münster," Romano responded with a sense of urgency. "Consequently, we must execute this task with considerable haste." They commenced their clandestine operation after the stroke of midnight, utilizing a secluded corner of the vast maintenance hangar. Their materials consisted entirely of scrap components that Kellerman had, through unofficial channels, managed to acquire. The foundational elements of their project were ingeniously repurposed from salvaged aircraft parts. Gracefully curved mirrors were extracted from damaged navigation equipment. Sturdy plexiglass sheets were meticulously cut from shattered canopy sections, and robust aluminum brackets were ingeniously fashioned from airframes that had been regretfully written off. The crucial reflector sight itself, the indispensable core of Romano's invention, was carefully retrieved from a tragically wrecked P-47 Thunderbolt fighter. Kellerman, with remarkable ingenuity, meticulously removed the undamaged gun sight assembly, which had originally been engineered for a nose-mounted installation, and expertly re-engineered its mounting brackets to perfectly accommodate the severely cramped confines of the tail gunner's position. The intricate mirror system, however, presented a more formidable challenge. Romano envisioned 3 diminutive convex mirrors, each precisely positioned at specific angles to offer a panoramic, peripheral view of his tracer paths without in any way obstructing his crucial forward visibility. Kellerman, demonstrating his exceptional fabrication prowess, meticulously crafted adjustable brackets using pliable sheet aluminum and resourceful ball socket joints expertly salvaged from control surface linkages. They toiled tirelessly through the entirety of the night, painstakingly fitting each component, rigorously testing the sight lines, and making precise, iterative adjustments to achieve optimal performance. At precisely 0430 hours, Kellerman completed the installation of the entire assembly into Romano's designated aircraft, a B-17G proudly bearing the designation Knockout Dropper. While the rest of the flight line remained peacefully asleep, the installation by any conventional engineering standard was undeniably crude. Brackets were attached using standard aircraft bolts, but mirrors were affixed with mere safety wire, a temporary solution. The reflector sight itself was mounted to the gun yoke via a crudely welded bracket, a sight that would undoubtedly have caused any Boeing engineer to recoil in sheer horror. Crucially, not a single detail of this audacious modification was ever recorded in the aircraft's official maintenance logbook. At the dawn briefing, Romano maintained a discreet silence regarding his newly installed sight, sharing no information with his peers or superiors. His pilot, Lieutenant James Holbrook, conducted no inspection of the tail section prior to their takeoff. The group commander remained entirely unaware of the modification, as did the squadron armament officer. At precisely 0730 hours, they launched for their mission to Münster. Over the German skies at 10,015 hours, a menacing Bf-109 initiated its attack run. Appearing at 6 o'clock low, it closed in with alarming speed. Romano swiftly swiveled his guns, his eyes intently squinting through the new reflector sight. The illuminated reticle floated prominently within his field of vision, precisely overlaying the target. In his peripheral vision, the strategically placed mirrors provided a clear, instantaneous display of his gun barrels' alignment angles, offering immediate and invaluable feedback regarding the precise direction of his weapons. He unleashed a 3-second burst. The discernible tracer pattern, clearly visible in the mirrors, indicated that he was firing behind the rapidly moving target. He swiftly adjusted his aim, leading the nimble fighter by precisely the diameter of the reticle. He fired once more. This time, the converging tracers and the target met with devastating accuracy. The Bf-109's engine erupted in a spectacular explosion. The crippled fighter rolled inverted and spun uncontrollably toward the earth, leaving a thick trail of ominous black smoke. Romano stared intently at his guns, then at the mirrors, and finally back at the now empty expanse of sky where the enemy fighter had been mere seconds before. "Holy," he whispered, his voice barely audible through his oxygen mask. "It unequivocally works." Romano safely landed at 1340 hours, having secured one confirmed kill, a significant milestone, as it was his very first. The ensuing celebration, however, was remarkably short-lived, lasting precisely 20 minutes. At 1400 hours, during a routine post-flight inspection, Crew Chief Master Sergeant Donald Pierce stumbled upon the unauthorized modifications. Pierce, adhering strictly to protocol, immediately reported his discovery to the squadron armament officer, Captain Richard Voss, who promptly arrived at the hardstand, clutching a clipboard and displaying an expression of barely suppressed fury. "Sergeant Romano," Voss began, his voice taut with an almost military precision, "would you care to provide an explanation for the unauthorized equipment that has been installed in your gun position?" Romano stood rigidly at attention. "Sir, I have installed an improved sighting system." "You installed what?" Voss's voice escalated, tinged with disbelief and growing anger. "Do you possess any comprehension whatsoever of the myriad regulations you have so flagrantly violated? Technical Order R012-20EG2 explicitly and unequivocally prohibits any unauthorized modifications to defensive armament. This, Sergeant, is not some hot rod project in your personal backyard. This is a combat aircraft, a vital piece of military hardware, Unapproved modifications carry severe risks. They can compromise structural integrity, they can create dangerous fire hazards, and they can catastrophically interfere with other critical operational systems. Sir, the system demonstrably works. I successfully shot down. I am utterly indifferent if you single-handedly shot down the entirety of the Luftwaffe. Voss interjected, emphatically jabbing a finger toward the tail section of the aircraft. That equipment is emphatically not Army Air Force's standard. It has not received Boeing approval. It has undergone absolutely no rigorous testing protocols. Remove it immediately, or I will initiate court-martial proceedings against you for the destruction of government property. Romano's pilot, Lieutenant Holbrook, stepped forward, attempting to intercede. Captain, my tail gunner achieved his first kill today utilizing that very site. Perhaps we should— Your opinion, Lieutenant, has been duly noted. Voss curtly interrupted him, his authority unwavering. The modification will be removed. That decision is final and non-negotiable. News of Romano's audacious act spread like an uncontained wildfire throughout the entire 91st Bomb Group. By the time of the evening mess, every single gunner on the base was fully apprised of Romano's illicit mirror sight and the confirmed kill it had enabled. Opinions on the matter were sharply divided. Veteran gunners, intrigued and impressed, congregated around Romano's table, barraging him with an array of eager questions. How challenging is the installation process? What is the actual field of view? Can those mirrors truly withstand the intense slipstream stress at speeds exceeding 200 ms? However, the engineering officers and senior maintenance staff reacted with palpable alarm and deep concern. Captain Theodore Morrison, the group's assistant armament officer, promptly convened an emergency meeting on October 11th. 14 officers attended, and the prevailing tone of the gathering was decidedly hostile. Gentlemen, Morrison began, his voice stern and unwavering, we are currently confronted with a significant discipline problem. A mere sergeant has unilaterally performed unauthorized modifications using salvaged components of entirely unknown provenance. This sets an incredibly dangerous and unacceptable precedent. If every single enlisted man decides to arbitrarily re-engineer his weapon system based solely on personal preference. At this point, the room erupted into a cacophony of dissenting voices. With all due respect, sir, that assertion is utterly absurd. Major William Calhoun, the operations officer, rose to his feet, his voice resonating with conviction. Romano successfully shot down an enemy fighter. Using this very system, our tail gunners currently achieve a dismal 8% hit rate. If his modification improves that statistic even marginally. Morrison's face visibly reddened, a clear sign of his rising agitation. Major, we possess no corroborating data, no rigorous testing results. A single successful engagement does not, under any circumstances, validate such a radical modification. Then conduct the tests, Calhoun retorted, his voice sharp and challenging. Deploy Romano tomorrow with the modification still installed. Gun cameras will capture objective, irrefutable data. If it proves ineffective, then by all means remove it. However, if it does work, perhaps we should seriously consider installing these systems across the entire group, instead of pursuing court-martial proceedings against the very man who ingeniously invented them. The argument intensified rapidly, escalating into a heated debate. Engineers vehemently cited a litany of safety concerns, while combat officers passionately countered with grim casualty rates. The meeting quickly devolved into an uncontrolled shouting match. At precisely 2,000 hours, the dispute reached the desk of Colonel Stanley Ray, the commanding officer of the 91st Bomb Group. Colonel Ray, a distinguished career officer with a reputation for both unwavering discipline and profound pragmatism, had served as a bomber pilot during the First World War and was now 53 years old. He listened intently to the impassioned arguments from both sides for a full 90 minutes, refraining from any interruption. Finally, he broke the silence, his voice calm yet authoritative. "How many bombers did we tragically lose last week?" A profound silence descended upon the room. "Captain Morrison, I specifically asked you a direct question." 17, sir," Morrison replied, his voice subdued. 17 B-17s, from this group alone," Ray reiterated, his gaze piercing. "And how many enemy fighters did our tail gunners successfully shoot down during those perilous missions? Confirmed kills, I require." 3, sir," Morrison confirmed. Ray nodded slowly, his expression grim. 17 bombers, representing 680 brave American boys, against a mere 3 confirmed German fighters. He then looked directly at Captain Morrison, his eyes conveying a potent mixture of disappointment and resolve. "Captain, your concern regarding unauthorized modifications is duly noted. Your concern about adherence to regulations is undeniably valid. But I am far more profoundly concerned about the unacceptable reality of losing 17 goddamn airplanes every single week, because our defensive armament is demonstrably ineffective." He then turned his full attention to Romano. "Sergeant, your modification will remain on your aircraft. You will fly the next 3 missions, with gun cameras meticulously recording every single engagement. If your hit rate measurably improves, we will proceed to authorize its installation across the entire group. If, however, it does not, we will regrettably remove the equipment, and you will face appropriate disciplinary action for the unauthorized modification. Is that clearly understood?" Romano executed a crisp salute. "Yes, sir." Ray then rose from his chair. "Gentlemen, this meeting is hereby adjourned, and furthermore, someone had better procure for me a complete set of those damned mirror drawings immediately." We sincerely hope you are enjoying this compelling narrative. Please stay with us and watch the end of the video for the conclusion of this incredible story. We would be immensely grateful for your like and subscription, which greatly supports our efforts. In the comments section below, please let us know where you are from and what your thoughts are on the fascinating topic presented in this video. October 12th, 1943, Romano embarked upon his 4th combat mission, flying with the now sanctioned modified sight system and with gun cameras, meticulously recording every single moment of the engagement. The 8th Air Force had dispatched an impressive formation of 236 B-17s, targeting crucial submarine construction facilities. In response, the Luftwaffe fighter wings scrambled a formidable force of 250 interceptors. At precisely 1123 hours, over the treacherous German coast, the relentless attacks began. A menacing Focke-Wulf FW-190 dove aggressively from 7 o'clock high. Romano, with unwavering focus, tracked its descent through the innovative reflector sight, the illuminated reticle providing an instantaneous and precise aim point reference. His peripheral vision, facilitated by the strategically placed mirrors, captured clear images displaying his gun alignment, offering immediate and invaluable feedback regarding the exact direction of his weapons. He unleashed a 4-second burst, making real-time adjustments as the tracer reflections vividly revealed his bullet path. The FW-190's wing root erupted in a violent inferno. The crippled fighter immediately broke off its attack, trailing thick, ominous smoke. At 11:47 hours, a BF-109 approached from 6 o'clock level, presenting the classic tail attack profile. Romano, with practiced ease, centered the reticle, cross-referenced his mirror feedback, and fired with deadly precision. The 109's canopy shattered into 1,000 pieces. The fighter rolled inverted and plunged away, spiraling toward the earth. The gun camera footage meticulously captured both of these dramatic engagements in excruciating detail. Michael Romano's return to Bassingbourn Airfield marked a pivotal moment as he disembarked with a verified record of 2 aerial victories and 1 additional probable downing. His total expenditure of ordnance for these engagements amounted to a mere 380 rounds. This translated to an astonishingly efficient 190 rounds per kill, representing a stark enhancement over the customary 2,800 rounds typically required by conventional tailgunners. The engineering staff, tasked with scrutinizing the recorded observations, meticulously reviewed the gun camera footage. Captain Morrison, despite his prior skepticism, intently watched Romano's illuminated projectile trajectories and his pursuit of aerial adversaries. Faced with such compelling evidence, he was compelled to acknowledge the undeniable truth. The innovative optical assembly, a mirror-reflector combination, uniquely facilitated immediate aiming adjustments, a capability utterly unachievable using the standard rudimentary aiming devices. "All right," Captain Morrison finally conceded. "The device functions effectively. Nevertheless, we require formal schematics, uniform components, and prescribed fitting protocols before we can sanction its widespread deployment across the entire squadron." Colonel Ray, sensing the urgency of the situation, immediately inquired, "What is the estimated timeline?" Morrison responded, "A minimum of 6 weeks. This would necessitate liaising with 8th Air Force Headquarters and presenting formal alteration requests." The protracted timeline was simply unfeasible given the pressing operational demands. Colonel Ray then addressed Technical Sergeant Kellerman, posing a direct question: "How many of these systems can you construct daily using currently available materials?" Kellerman deliberated for a moment. Utilizing assistance from the sheet metal shop, perhaps 4 complete assemblies. If we salvage reflector sights from unserviceable interceptors and fabricate the requisite mirror supports on site, then we can commence production. Colonel Ray's directive was unequivocal. "I want every tail gunner in this group outfitted with this system within a fortnight." Captain Morrison protested. "Sir, without official sanction from 8th Air Force—" "Captain," Ray interjected with authority, "I will personally manage 8th Air Force. You will oversee the technical design requirements. You are relieved. We invite you to stay with us and watch the end of this video. We would be grateful for your like and subscription. Please also consider leaving a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic." What ensued was an ad hoc production endeavor that would undoubtedly send shivers down the spines of official military procurement authorities. Technical Sergeant Kellerman and his dedicated maintenance crew ingeniously requisitioned disparate parts from across Bassingbourn Airfield. This included salvaging reflector sights from decommissioned P-47 Thunderbolt aircraft, repurposing mirrors from faulty navigational instruments, and acquiring raw aluminum materials from inventory depots. They swiftly instituted an assembly process within the maintenance hangar, constructing 4 fully functional optical aiming devices each day. By October 20th, a significant 18 B-17s belonging to the 91st Bomb Group had been outfitted with Romano's ingenious alteration. The efficacy of these modifications manifested with astonishing swiftness and profound impact. On October 20th, during the challenging Duren mission, tail gunners utilizing the mirror reflector sights registered an impressive 11 verified aerial victories in response to 47 enemy fighter attacks. This amounted to a remarkable 23.4% accuracy ratio, approaching 3 times the efficacy of prior conventional systems. On November 3rd, during the Wilhelmshaven mission, bombers equipped with the new sights witnessed 16 confirmed kills from 68 fighter attacks encountered, maintaining a robust hit rate of 23.5%. Just 2 days later, on November 5th, the Gelsenkirchen incursion mission resulted in 13 confirmed kills, achieving an accuracy ratio of 21.8%. The quantifiable effect of this innovation radically altered the prospects of aircraft enduring hostile encounters, fundamentally transforming bomber survivability. Luftwaffe pilots, previously accustomed to assaulting B-17s from the rear with comparative safety, were abruptly confronted by precise and persistent suppressive volleys. German post-engagement analyses soon observed a marked enhancement in the potency of American tail weapons, explicitly advising a fundamental re-evaluation of engagement methodologies. Major Hans-Joachim Jabs, a distinguished Luftwaffe night fighter ace, briefly tasked with daylight interceptor duties, recorded in his personal operational log, "The flying fortresses have become considerably more formidable. Their tail gunners now exhibited a degree of precision hitherto exclusive to hydraulically powered gun emplacements. Attacks from the aft sector now carry intolerable peril." News of these remarkable developments permeated to 8th Air Force Headquarters at High Wycombe. On November 18th, Brigadier General Frederick Castle, the esteemed commander of the 4th Bombardment Wing, made an unscheduled visit to Bassingbourn. He personally scrutinized Romano's gunnery station, meticulously reviewed the recorded gun camera observations, and conducted a half-hour interview with Romano. "Sergeant, how did you know this would work?" Castle inquired. Romano responded with a humble gesture. "I didn't, sir, but the old sights definitely didn't work, so I concluded that any alternative would likely represent an enhancement." Castle let out a chuckle, a rare sound of levity concerning this critical matter in recent memory. "An entirely valid observation," he acknowledged. He then meticulously examined the optical mirror configuration, assessing its operational flexibility. "This can be produced on a larger scale at a central supply facility," he declared. Romano confirmed, "Yes, sir. Sergeant Kellerman has formal technical blueprints now." While the constituent parts were primarily repurposed, we could procure purpose-built components should the necessity arise. Castle nodded decisively. "I'm sanctioning its prompt integration throughout the 4th Bombardment Wing. Every B-17 will be outfitted with this enhancement within a month's time frame." He then fixed his gaze upon Romano. "Sergeant, you likely preserved a greater number of American service personnel than you could possibly fathom. By December 1943, Romano's mirror reflector sight system Formerly named the Field Expedient Tailgun Aiming System, Type 1, had been integrated into more than 200 B-17s spanning numerous bomber units. The 8th Air Force, recognizing its undeniable value, initiated comprehensive technical evaluations. Boeing's Cheyenne Modification Center, which was concurrently refining the improved Cheyenne tail turret, integrated the foundational concepts of Romano's optical aiming system into its blueprint. The mass-produced Cheyenne turret, which started to be deployed on the B-17G variants in January 1944, incorporated an N8 optical sight situated in nearly the identical location as the repurposed P-47 sight had been placed within Romano's ad hoc setup. The profound effect on the longevity of bomber crews was demonstrably quantifiable and profoundly impactful. For formations of B-17s whose aircraft were outfitted with enhanced rear aiming devices, they experienced a reduction in casualties from stern assaults, ranging from 32 to 37%, between October 1943 and March 1944. This vital improvement equated to the preservation of scores of aircraft and hundreds of precious lives, all saved by an ingenious alteration that a singular engineering officer had initially condemned as illicit and hazardous. Romano himself persisted in active operational sorties through February 1944. His individual count amounted to 7 verified aerial victories and 4 probables, a truly remarkable achievement for a rear gunner. Yet of greater significance, his ingenious concept disseminated across the 8th Air Force, subsequently reaching the 15th Air Force in Italy, eventually shaping protective weapon system alterations on B-24 Liberators as well. On February 22, 1944, amidst the intense Big Week offensive against German aircraft production facilities, Romano's bomber sustained severe anti-aircraft artillery damage over Leipzig. Despite the perilous conditions, he persevered in confronting enemy interceptors, while pressurized hydraulic liquid and volatile aviation fuel permeated the tail section. His aircraft ultimately executed a forced landing in Belgium. Remarkably, the entire crew lived through the ordeal, though Romano himself endured the concluding period of the conflict as a prisoner of war in Germany. Michael Romano made his way back to American soil in May 1945, his physical frame diminished to 127 pounds, a notable 18-pound reduction from his initial enlistment stature. The Army Air Forces bestowed upon him the prestigious Distinguished Flying Cross for extraordinary achievement while participating in aerial flight, acknowledging his innovative contribution to defensive armament effectiveness. Intriguingly, the official commendation meticulously refrained from acknowledging the fact that his groundbreaking improvisation had, at its inception, been unauthorized. Romano consistently shunned public acclaim, politely turning down solicitations for interviews from specialized defense publications. When Boeing engineers extended an invitation for him to visit their Seattle plant to deliberate on the evolution of the Cheyenne turret, he respectfully declined, remarking simply, "I merely fashioned what was essential for my own preservation. Others subsequently formalized it into an official system." He repatriated to Pittsburgh, united in matrimony with his childhood beloved, and dedicated nearly 4 decades of his life to a career as a skilled machinist. He seldom spoke of his wartime experiences. His offspring matured with the limited understanding that their progenitor had piloted bomber aircraft and repaired certain aiming devices, yet the profound impact of his ad hoc optical aiming apparatus transcended his inherent humility. The mass-manufactured Cheyenne tail turret for the B-17G, which integrated the optical sighting concepts initially developed by Romano, was adopted as the universal armament on every flying fortress manufactured in the latter stages of the conflict. Boeing fabricated 8 680 B-17G aircraft between August 1943 and April 1945, with the overwhelming proportion of these aircraft furnished with sophisticated rear gunnery aiming mechanisms, whose lineage could be traced directly to Romano's impromptu field alteration. The enhanced efficacy of rear gunnery compelled the German Air Force to forsake their favored 6 o'clock attack vector. Consequently, German interceptor strategies pivoted towards frontal assaults, a maneuver fraught with greater peril for the attacking aircraft, but rendered essential to circumvent the formidable rearward defenses. This strategic adjustment played a significant role in the escalating attrition of Luftwaffe fighter assets throughout 1944. A comprehensive post-war evaluation conducted by the U.S. Strategic Bombing Survey meticulously cataloged the profound ramifications. Formations of B-17s outfitted with these advanced rear-aiming devices experienced a reduction in losses from stern attacks ranging from 32 to 37%, in contrast to preceding aircraft variants over the course of countless bombing sorties. This crucial statistical improvement signified the preservation of an estimated 840 aircraft and 8,400 airmen who, based on prior probabilities, would not have otherwise endured the rigors of aerial warfare. The foundational concepts that Romano innovated, integrating optical reflector sights with supplementary peripheral visual assistance and dynamic feedback mechanisms, profoundly shaped the trajectory of subsequent defensive weapon system development. Contemporary rear gunnery configurations found on formidable aircraft such as the B-52 Stratofortress utilize advanced computer-aided aiming devices, yet the core tenet persists unchanged: to provide the gunner with the most unambiguous visual representation of both the trajectory of his ordnance and the movement of his designated adversaries. In 1983, the 91st Bomb Group Association convened a commemorative gathering at Bassingbourn Airfield, which had since been designated a heritage location. A number of former rear gunners who had operated aircraft equipped with Romano's optical mirror aiming systems were present. Among the attendees, Gerald Hammond presented a repurposed mirror support that he had meticulously preserved for 4 decades. Hammond approached Romano, then a 60-year-old man with silvered hair, living the life of a grandfather, and uttered with profound sincerity, "It is owing to your ingenuity and those reflective devices that I returned home. My children owe their very existence to your refusal to tolerate substandard aiming equipment. My deepest gratitude." He could not abide substandard gun sights. For that, gratitude was expressed. Romano, visibly uneasy with such heartfelt commendation, offered a modest shrug and countered, "Anyone would have done the same thing. Our collective aspiration was simply to survive long enough to return to our homes." Yet, in this humble assessment, Romano was profoundly mistaken. Thousands upon thousands of tail gunners found themselves confronted by the identical predicament of deficient aiming devices, the same insurmountable targeting dilemmas, and the equally dreadful casualty rates that decimated their ranks. Out of this multitude, only one individual adamantly declined to merely tolerate the existing perilous conditions. Only one possessed the sheer temerity to contravene established military regulations, the ingenious skill to devise an impromptu remedy, and the unwavering courage to jeopardize his career and freedom by risking court-martial, all for the profound possibility of preserving human lives. Michael Romano, the man behind this extraordinary ingenuity, passed away in the year 2003 having reached the venerable age of 79. His posthumous notice, published in the esteemed Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, summarized his significant military contributions in a solitary, concise phrase, "World War II veteran, 8th Air Force." Conspicuously absent from this brief mention was any acknowledgement that he had acted as a savior for countless individuals, having preserved thousands of lives through the ingenious application of reflective surfaces and components salvaged from discarded planes. Nor did it mention that his initially unauthorized alteration to equipment subsequently achieved widespread adoption, becoming standard issue. Furthermore, there was no recognition that while high-ranking military officers and technical experts engaged in protracted debates over official rules and validation procedures, a remarkable 22-year-old factory worker hailing from Pittsburgh had successfully resolved a critical issue that had utterly eluded their collective expertise and resources. Stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Write a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. This profound narrative underscores a fundamental truth. The most groundbreaking advancements and effective breakthroughs do not originate from the anticipation of official sanction. Rather, they emerge from individuals who resolutely decline to passively observe fatalities while awaiting bureaucratic assent. The timeless wisdom gleaned from Romano's actions, therefore, persists with enduring relevance. Occasionally, the most profound display of bravery does not necessarily entail strict adherence to commands or protocols. Instead, it manifests as the discerning wisdom to recognize the precise moment when established guidelines carry significantly less weight than the sanctity of human existence itself.